Welcome everyone to Toshiba's webinar on information security and dark data. I've got with us today Dennis from ELO, and let's just jump straight into it. Let's see, the very first thing I'm going to ask is, what is, in your opinion, information security? Dennis?
That's a good question, Anthony, and it's a pleasure to be here. Information security is all about how we secure our data from unauthorized use, and then how we, or an organization, keeps that information safe.
I'm just thinking, aren't we all doing that anyway? I know here at Toshiba, there's a huge focus on security, making sure access. Isn't that happening anyway in most organizations?
Well, absolutely. Every organization keeps all its information that it knows about safe. It's important, but that's the thing. It's the information that they know about.
What do you mean by this know about, and then what we don't know about? What exactly, can you give us some examples as well? What exactly are you referring to, Dennis?
Of course. Let's think about our hiring process when we're collecting all the information for the employees that we want to onboard. During this onboarding process, we would collect the information via emails and our potential platforms that we're utilizing, and we'd store them very nicely. Then as the onboarding process is completed, we would then enter that information into our various HR or people and culture systems. But what about the email correspondence beforehand, the ones that asked for the superannuation, that asked for your tax file number? What about all the different CVs that we would have stored during the selection process? Another example would be, probably something that hits a bit more closer to home to a lot of us, school permission slips. A bit education focused, but it's something that affects us all. In a school permission slip, you would have your name, your child's name, possibly your credit card information, your address, where do you live, where's the school, and how is that secured? And really, on a more personal note, what about medical information or personal information in a medical invoice? How's that stored? What do we store in our system? Where is that kept?
Wow. I'm just thinking about our recent hires, and I've still got a habit of, I still physically print out CVs and resumes because I like reading them, put my notes down, and I like to use it to separate, who are the better candidates versus who are the candidates on my shortlist, as an example. I know I follow the procedures afterwards. We've got shredders, we've got blue bins secure. I'm just thinking, what about all the emails, everything, that whole process that we go through, and I can imagine all that sensitive information. I'm just thinking even out some real examples that I can think of in the news. I think earlier this year, there was a bank closure, and sadly, people found all the bank statements, all the paper records in the dump bin outside. It was actually, so I can see, if you don't have an audit trail for physical destruction of this data or these paper documents, that's where it's lost. And scenarios like this case with this bank, where they've actually closed the branch down and left all their sensitive paper documents in the rubbish bin, ready to be collected by council. That's actually scary. What do we call this? What's the best term for this information, all this data, and how do we actually, what are some good ways to actually secure this information or destroy it, or what do we actually do, Dennis?
Well, thanks for asking. And what this is called, it's called dark data. And essentially what dark data is, it's all the information that a business stores and collects over its regular business process, but then may not utilize properly. Now, the collection of dark data increases not only the maintenance costs for an organization, but it also then increases the risk of a data breach and can increase the impact of a data breach for an organization. And realistically, about 90% of the big data that we collect through regular business process is dark data.
Wow. From all that, I think the key that I got is 90% of our big data is classified basically or become dark data. So it doesn't matter whether you're a school, whether you're a charity, aged care, you're a private enterprise, all this data we're accumulating, there's a huge chance, based on that 90% you told me, that all that is going to be turned into dark data. Can you give me, I'm just trying to get my head around it, what are some common places where I can find this dark data? And give me some examples, just so we're all very clear in terms of this dark data.
Well, of course, we've got the CV example we had before in the education, but also things such as log files during service requests, raw survey data, marketing campaigns, old CVs, a lot of technical information that is collected through regular business process. Again, it becomes legacy and obsolete, but it's still there, it's still in the system, and someone could find use of it. Now, Gartner originally coined the term. And what they've called dark data is that information that is collected over a regular business process, but that organizations fail to secure and protect throughout the course of their organizational processes.
I'm just trying to think of examples I've gone through, and in the past I've worked for an organisation, typically in sales. Before we submit a tender response, there's multiple versions. So normal process for us. Let's do the draft. We probably, this case I'm thinking back a couple of years ago, we had a very large tender. I think there was about 7 versions. We got the bids team involved, marketing were involved. We had the account manager. Now, on those proposals and tender, we've got contact details of the C-suite of the customer. We've got name, position, phone number, email address, everything all there. We've got sensitive information around our pricing around that. And then we stored, at the time I stored it on my laptop. I know marketing had a copy, everyone who was involved. We were collaborating using SharePoint, and the final resting place for it was in our ERP system. Was always stored that final version we submitted. But I'm just thinking, wow, we've got probably 20 versions of that out there in all different departments of that sales proposal and all that information. So yeah, it does make you wonder in terms of all this information. Put it simply, Dennis, how can you help? How do we actually start looking at addressing this issue of dark data and how you can assist? I'm just thinking of an example. A couple of years ago when we submitted a very large tender. Now, we had 7 different versions of that document before we submitted that final version for the tender. And that was ultimately stored in our ERP system. But I'm just thinking, we had myself, we had account manager, we had the bids team, we had marketing, we had the professional service team all collaborate to work on that tender and get all the pricing and everything. So that tender had sensitive information such as contact details of the C-suite of the organization, names, phone numbers, emails. It had all obviously very sensitive information around our pricing around that. I stored that document, probably 4 or 5 different drafts of it on my laptop. We were collaborating on Teams. So there's a team site that we've got all that information on. It was synced back to my own personal OneDrive. Add to that, all these other team members, from marketing all the way through to, our bids team. We probably had 20 different versions stored of that document. So you're telling me all the information we collected now is actually, if we didn't, remove it, that's actually our dark data. So I'm just thinking, what are the consequences of actually accumulating all this dark data to our organization?
Yeah, it's things we just don't even think about. Thing is, though, hackers will find this data very sweet, very good for them. Now, Gartner predicted that in 2021, about 80% of organizations would fail to implement proper security processes across the different silos information that they have. And if the last 12 months, 24 months, even since 2021 have showed us that rings true. dark data as well, the kicker with it all is that we may not find it useful anymore. That draft that we had, that memo, that whatever, oh yeah, it's in the past, it doesn't really matter. But for a hacker, it does. They will find ways to exploit an organization, exploit their customers, exploit the employees, exploit everyone involved with that, just because it's information that we didn't find useful anymore.
I think most Australians in the past 12 months have experienced some form of data breach. I think everyone knows about the telco data breach, and that had just ramifications for millions of Australians. That was actually quite scary. How driver's license, passport details. I don't think people really were impacted until that significant telco data breach. And it's highlighted, especially around this dark data, the impact it can have on our security in terms of what we manage and how we look after our information. Simple question then: how can you help, Dennis? How can you help everyone on this webinar and other organisations around this dark data?
Well, the first step, and please do mind the pun, is that we need to shine a light on this dark data. Once we find it, we need to then go through the process of securing it. We could redact it, we could delete it, we could edit the document, and there's a lot of things we have to do, but finding it is crucial first.
Actually, I've got an idea. I actually see, in preparation of today's meeting, catch up, I actually got your business card.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's always, I've got your name, I've got your title, obviously your email address and phone number, etc. What can you do with this business card, actually? How about we test it and see how you can find some dark data?
Let me show you. I'm going to take a photo, put it in the system, we'll see what we can see. You can see here, I have stored a lovely photo of my business card. Try not to spook myself here, but here we have it stored in the system, and I'm going to open up the metadata form for this. I'm going to go to our PAI tab, our Personable Identifiable Information tab, and it's going to show me all the sensitive data that we found. We can see here in this tab that, yes, it's been analyzed, and the status is true, meaning we found some PII, some sensitive data. What we can see here as well is that we've found a name. We found a phone number. We found an email address. We found a location. All of that can be gleaned from here.
So just basically, just by taking that image, or the AI in the solution is basically picked up all that information. I'm more worried about other information. Now, to me, I'm worried about things like my credit card details, tax file number, Medicare number. They're things I'd be very concerned about if it was somewhere out in some document. Does your solution work on other fields, or is it just details, simple things like name and all that? But does it work on capturing other sensitive fields?
Oh, absolutely. And whilst it's now a bit gimmicky to show you my business card, well, we can clearly see the information. Let's see something with a bit more practical purpose. What we've got here in front of us is a contract document. It's a contract between you and I for bringing Anthony Chen, the fantastic salesperson, on board with our company. This could be a 5-page contract. It could be a 60-page contract, but the point here is we may not go through every single point, especially if it's quite a long contract with a lot of different clauses. Your eyes will glaze over. You can't find everything. But if we have a look at this document here, and again, that PAI tab, we can see that we've detected a tax file number. We've detected a Medicare number. And as well, for this example, we've detected a credit card number. Often you wouldn't find your credit card number in a contract document, but you never know. Additionally, these are all metadata fields. They're true or false. Have they found it? Have they not? What that means is we can then dedicate a search to finding that. If I now navigate my way over to the iSearch field, and I add an additional search parameter. I want to search via credit card number. Perform the search, activate credit card, and there we go. It's found a document with credit card in it. The same can be done for tax file number. The same can be done for Medicare number. And really, we can search all the different fields that are possible with our AI tool. Additionally, if an organization had specific terminology or certain, such as a project number that they need to make sure is detected, or even things such as the word classified or confidential, these can be added to the AI tool.
So I'm just thinking, what if they had the word confidential? That's so your AI could actually pick up everything that, when that word is picked up on a document somewhere, what happens then? If I,
Yep, absolutely. We could add that.
So basically recognizes every time there's a word confidential in it, it'll raise potentially, a workflow or someone to review it. So it just has an audit trail going forward of any confidential, that word confidential in any document, or we've got something with that keyword in there, the system will basically highlight it and bring it to someone's attention that someone is either accessing it or downloading or doing something with a document that has the word. Wow, that's a very effective way of making sure you're removing your dark data, as well as that whole concept of information security for today. Dennis, what other things can you help us with in terms of removing that dark data?
Well, look, realistically, good compliance and effective tools are the best way forward for finding it. But the question, of course, everyone's on their mind is, why? Why does this affect me? Why should I care about this dark data? And there's two very good reasons for it. And there's been recent legislative changes, and I highly recommend everyone to look up the Privacy Legislation Amendment Bill that's recently come through. But the two changes that are biggest. For one, the fine has been increased. It's gone from 2.2 million to 50 million, with the potential of being larger than 50 million based on the revenue of the company. Scary. But what's even scarier is that the threshold for when you are then, when you can be a fine, when this fine can be applied to you, has been lowered significantly. So there's a lot more medium-sized and possibly even some small-sized organizations that fall into this fine bracket. So that's really the key part there, that why we should be motivated is that we don't have a spare 50 million or more in the pocket, and we're now applicable to that.
That is scary, Dennis. So basically, apart from the fines being just astronomical now, I think that's more what is more scary in terms of for our listeners out here is it's actually going to impact a lot more small business and medium-sized business. That is what I really got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just trying to think, a lot of our customers, do they know what happens if they experience a data breach? What's the process? Who do they alert? How do they get, I'm sure they probably just rely on their IT, and say, I'll just pass it. But it sounds like now, no, it's not their IT. Actually, the onus is now back on these small and medium-sized organizations. Yeah. They've got to take responsibility and to that next level. I think that's some of the key changes in this legislation is now it's that threshold has actually brought it that small, medium, and more of those businesses size, more of that size business are now actually going to be impacted by these fines, which is quite alarming. Just wrapping up, Dennis, the key takeaway that I got out of this in terms of dark data, it's everywhere. So the idea that everything in my organization is secure, it's in everywhere. It's when you said 90% of our big data actually becomes dark data, that was that light bulb moment that it impacts every organization. The other key is to actually, you have to identify your dark data and remove it. You can't just store it. Let's put it here. You need to do something to that dark data. You either need to redact it. You need to remove it. you need to secure it, you need to limit access. You've got to do something with that dark data. That's another key in terms of what I've learned today around that. So it's been, as usual, very informative every time you come in, and then I've got a lot of value out of it today. I'm sure all our listeners now know a lot more about information security and what is dark data and how to actually start removing that information. Thank you for your time again, Dennis.
Absolute pleasure.
And I thank everyone for joining the webinar. I look forward to everyone joining our next webinar, and the topic on this one will be around cost-effective digital transformation. How can we make that process simple and easy for everyone going forward? And look forward to everyone joining next time.
See you later.